Hi there. This is a video about female and male reproductive anatomy, and actually want to start with three common misconceptions there are about this. So maybe as we kind of go through, we'll be able to dispel and correct these misconceptions. So number one, the vagina refers to all female genitals. Okay. Number two, only males produce testosterone. And three, male and female anatomy are entirely separate and different systems. Right, so we're going to see how that misinformation may occur. Right, so as we kind of look at it, even though a lot of people learn anatomy as completely separate and different systems, what we're going to see is a lot of the structures are biologically related. They're very similar to each other and they function in similar ways. Right, so just to clarify a few things, when we're talking about reproductive anatomy, we're talking about things related to the process of reproduction, hormone production, sexual functioning, and even things like pleasure, right? So one of the things that we're going to see with both male and female reproductive systems is that we have internal organs, external structures, and also hormonal functions, right? So we're going to see those three things common between men and women. Okay? So starting with female reproductive anatomy, we can look at maybe some of the external anatomy, right? The key thing here is that this is the vulva. Right, so the vulva refers to all external genitalia, not the vagina. All right, so many incorrectly use vagina to describe everything as happening externally, and that's not what happens. All right, so with the vulva, this is everything that's external, and it can include things like the labia, the clitoris, the vaginal opening, and the urethral opening, but not the vagina itself, just kind of the opening part. All right, and so many are familiar with the clitoris because this is highly sensitive. This is an area that's actually associated with not only sexual pleasure, but it has some of the similar origins as the penis that we're going to see with men. All right, so they're going to share some similarities there. All right, so those are all the things happening on the outside externally. Internally, when we look at female reproductive anatomy, this is where you have the vagina. All right, so this is the muscular canal. And so it's going to have involvement in functions with menstruation, childbirth, and obviously sexual intercourse, right? From there, you have the cervix, right? So this is the opening between the vagina and then the uterus, right? And then the uterus, this is the space where pregnancy develops. So when a child is conceived, this is where they grow and develop, right? These are also connected to the fallopian tubes, right? This is like the egg transport system. Right, so this is often where fertilization occurs and where the eggs can get to where they need to. And then from there, those eggs are actually produced by the ovaries, right? And this is also where we get other hormones like estrogen and progesterone. Okay. Now, something that we will see that is unique to females is the menstrual cycle, right? So this is something that involves, we're going to look at hormone regulation, ovulation, the thickening of the uterine lining, and also menstruation if pregnancy does not occur, right? So if we have eggs that have not been fertilized, or pregnancy hasn't occurred, then it's kind of menstruation to get those things out, right? So we can clear it out and have new fresh ones ready for next month, next time. On the male side, again, there's external anatomy and then there's internal anatomy. On the external side, there are three main structures. There is the penis, the scrotum, and the testes, right? So the testes will be inside the scrotum, and then you have the penis. The penis, its primary function is for urination, ejaculation, and with that, sexual stimulation. Right? The testes are what produce the sperm, but also testosterone, right? And they reside within the scrotum, and the scrotum is external to the body because when we look at sperm production, it needs a certain temperature, and so being inside the body, it's actually a little too warm, right? So it needs to be outside of it, but at the same time, it can't be too cold. And this is why you actually see the scrotum can vary in size and kind of will shrink when colder to kind of maintain some more warmth, but again, without being actually inside the body where it'd be too warm, okay? And then when you look at internal anatomy, right? So we're going to see things like the prostrate gland, right? So it provides fluid that helps with movement of sperm, and you have something like the urethra as well. All right, so this is a tube that shares dual function. It carries both urine and semen. Both of those travel along their urethra. The important thing is that they can't happen simultaneously. It just doesn't happen. All right, it's only one or the other. Now, what we're going to see is that we're going to see similarities and differences. Some of the similarities that we're going to see is that a lot of these different anatomical features are shared, or at least have a shared origin, right? They start from the same tissues in our in the embryo. All right, so when we look at the penis and the clitoris, similar tissues. Look at the scrotum and the labia majora, similar tissues. Ovaries and testes, similar tissues. Okay. The other thing we want to look at is that when it comes to hormones, all bodies, both men and women, will produce testosterone and estrogen. Right? Both produce both. Right? We're going to see differences in the amounts, obviously, and the timing, how sensitive we are to them, but it is something that's in everybody. Right? So testosterone, for example, usually contributes towards libido for both men and women. And then estrogen, we're going to see, plays an important role in like our bone health and cardiovascular health. So both people need both. Okay. Another similarity that we're going to see is in the kind of sexual response cycle. Right. So when you look at things, when someone's aroused, you're looking at increased blood flow, muscles tensing up, either erectile changes or with lubrication, responses to orgasms. We're going to see very, very common similarities between, again, men and women. Now, the reason all this is important is that the more that we can better understand ourselves and our bodies, it helps us with things like properly using contraception and avoiding STIs and things of that nature. Helps us enjoy better sexual health and medical care. So this can come down to things like cancer screenings and reproductive health care, just in general being more aware of our bodies. Okay? So this is a complex process. There's a lot of interconnected systems at play here, but we have a lot of similarities while also having our differences. In all this anatomy, we're referring again specifically to reproductive anatomy. It's things that is sexual functions, reproductive functions, and things related to hormones and chromosomes. Okay, so just a couple again questions to end us out, things to consider and think about. Why do you think anatomy education is often incomplete or uncomfortable in society? All right, because think back to your own sex education classes. Not all of this is talked about, or maybe talked about in depth. So like, why do we think that's often incomplete? Like, why is this something that's uncomfortable for us to discuss? All right. We started off with 3 misconceptions. All right. What are some other ones that are very, very common, and like, how do we develop those? And then another kind of one last thought to leave us with is, how might better education improve sexual health outcomes? Okay. So if we're more informed, how could that potentially change things to help make improvements?